Hello everyone, welcome to a video lecture series on microcontrollers and embedded systems. Today we'll have a topic on ARM programming using assembly language, a part 2. So we will see the content what we are going to. The learning outcome of this section, the students will be able to demonstrate register allocation and looping constructs, and they are able to write assembly programs effectively by utilizing these concepts. So the outline is, we'll discuss about a register allocation and conditional execution. Register allocation. Basically, we are having a total number of 16 registers set in ARM processor, that is R0 to R15, to hold a general purpose data. But out of these, we can utilize only R0 to R12 and R14. That is, only 14 registers are used to hold a general purpose data. The register R13 is a stack pointer and the register R15 is a program counter, which are mainly used to hold the address, a special address that shows the path to the processor in terms of stack memory and execution memory. So therefore we never try to use the R13 and R15. Therefore there are 14 registers that are available for general purpose data storage. So out of these 14 registers, R0 to R3, 4 registers are used for argument passing. So basically when we deal with a C programming and a ARM programming linking, these 4 registers, basically R0, R1, R2 and R3, are used for argument passing. So we can easily use R4 to R12 and R14, that is total of 10 registers for data sharing. So the ARM term procedural call standards. So this ATPCS is nothing but which is controlling or which is telling the standard from ARM program, jumping from ARM program to a thumb program, or from thumb program back to ARM program. So this ATPCS uses R4 to R12 and R14, that is 10 registers, and preserves them, that means stores them while executing any subroutine programs. That is, when a main program is using R4 to R12 as well as R14, whenever subroutine program occurs, the ATPCS first stores the value of R4 to R12 from the main program into a stack memory. So for preserving these registers, we can use stack memory by using the instructions STM and LDM. So here we have shown one example that, for example, the subroutine underscore name is a name of the subroutine program. The main program is utilizing the registers R4 to R12. So from main program, the processor jumps from main program to subroutine underscore name. Here first we have to store, or the ATPCS, the standards tell us to store the registers of main program. So therefore we use the STM, store multiple, FD is full descending. So about this instructions we have already discussed in the load and store multiple data transfer. So here STM, FD, SP, R4 to R12, LR. This is a register list that saves register list R4 to R12 and LR on the stack memory. So after this, the body of the subroutine can utilize the same registers R4 to R12 and also LR for any process within the subroutine program only. After completion of the subroutine function, whenever the processor wants to jump from subroutine to main program, it has to get back the data which has been stored on the stack memory. So for that purpose, we have to write LDM FD SP, R4 to R12, PC. So here restore contents of R4 to R12 and LR in the register of PC, so that the processor should return back from this subroutine program to main program. So these registers already stored on the stack memory, which are restored back. So now, if there are many number of subroutines and the developer requires more number of registers, then we can go for two methods. It's a three methods. One is allocating variables to register numbers. Second one is using more than 14 local variables. And third one is making the most of available registers. So we'll go one by one. First we'll see allocating variables to register numbers. So how we can increase or how we can use a many number of registers in different subroutine programs. Here allocating variables to register numbers. So in the example we have written x underscore 0 rn space 5. So here x underscore 0 is a name, is a label. Rn is a directive for renaming the register number 5. 5 is the number of a register R5. So Rn directive used to allocate a different name for a register number. So here x0 is another name for R5 register. So why we have to allocate a different name for the same register? It means when I am working in one main program, I am going to use the register R5 with the name R5 only. And now if I jump to some subroutine program and there I will save the value of R5 into stack memory, and again I can use the register R5, but instead of calling it R5 I can call it x underscore 0, so that there won't be any confusion that R5 is used two times. So that is why this is one method, that is allocating a variable to register numbers. Like that, x1 x underscore 1 rn6, it is r6 name is going to be denoted as x underscore 1. So like that it will go on. And y underscore 0 rn space x underscore 0. Here x underscore 0 is already allocated to R5 and y underscore 0 is also denoted as R5 only. So in the main program I can call the register R5. In the subroutine, first subroutine program, I can call it as x underscore 0. In the second subroutine, I can call it as y underscore 0. So in this way, we can utilize different register names for different subroutine programs. The second method is using more than 14 local variables. So as we have only 14 local variables, that is R0 to Rtol and R14 LR. Now, what if the 14 number of registers are not enough and subroutine program may require more than this number? What if a subroutine program is needed a more than 14 number of registers? Then we have some three solutions here. One thing we can do that reduce the number of registers by performing fewer operations in the subroutine, but that is going to be quite tougher. The second point is use of stack to store register values to free up more registers. So this is what we are going to discuss now, using more than 14 local variables. The third point is alter the code implementation to free up the registers. Again, this may lead for issues. So we'll explain about the second point here. We'll go through the second highlighted point, and here for using more than 14 local variables, we have two methods to do that. One is stacking the registers through number of loops. I repeat, stacking the registers through number of loops, and define and allocate space for variables on the stack. We will go through these things. We'll take the first one, stacking the registers through number of loops. So how we can do this? Here first we have to create a multiple loops. In the below program, in the below figure, you can see that nested underscore loops. STMFD is nothing but a pushing a value from register into a stack memory. STMFD. So nested underscore loops, what we are doing it here, STMFD SP exclamatory mark comma R4 to R11 comma LR, and then we will set up the register list name to loop 1. We will create one more loop here called loop 1. In this, again we are going to push the value of all the register sets which we have set up in the nested underscore loops. So STMFD SP exclamatory mark comma loop 1 registers. So whatever the register set we have done in nested underscore loops, those registers are going to be sent into the stack memory. And in the loop 1 only, we are going to set up a loop 2 register list. We will create one more loop 2 here. Again we are pushing those register list which we have created in loop 1. So set up loop 2, that loop 2 registers are going to be sent into the stack memory. So here we have got three groups of registers, three sets of register set. That is R4 to R11 is one set, loop 1 register is second set, loop 2 register is one more set. So like this we have got around 39 registers. So in the loop 3 we are going to write the body of loop 3, that is whatever the required operations are there, that we are going to write in loop 3. So whenever we want to call the registers, we will just take back from loop 2 and loop 1 and the nested underscore loop. So every time whenever we go to loop, we can directly call those registers which are being stored into the stack memory. So these loops can be involved into a same subroutine program only. A single subroutine program is going to have a multiple loops, and that is going to push the registers of that loop on the stack and then call a nested loop in a subroutine whenever we require more than 14 local variables. This is stacking the registers through number of loops. This is one method, and another method is define and allocate space for variables on the stack. So it is nothing but on the stack memory only we can allocate, or we can define a variable, and we can allocate a space for that variable. To do that, we have two directives here. In the below figure, in the below program, we can see that map space 0 and a space field space 4 and so on, b space field space 2, d space field space 64, so it goes on. Here map is a directive that maps symbols to offsets starting address. Say for an example, if I want to allocate a space for some variables like a, b, c, d, a variable is of 4 bytes, b variable is of 2 bytes, c variable is of 2 bytes. So I'll restrict here, so I'm allocating only 8 bytes here, for example. Then the starting address of those variables are going to be set by the map directive. So here map symbol to offset starting address of offset. Then field is a one more directive that defines a size of memory to be allocated to a variable name. So the variable name is a, and size of memory which is allocated to a variable is 4. This is done by field directive. So here we can go through these two directives so that we can create more number of variables, and these variables can be used in any of the subroutine programs according to the application. So the third one, making the most of available register. Here, to ease the register pressure, we can store multiple values in the same register. This is quite different than the previous methods, so that here now whenever we require a more number of registers, we used to create a variables, or we used to create a loops. But here, to do that, we can store a multiple values in the same register. Say for an example, if we are dealing with 8-bit or 16-bit values, it is sometimes possible to manipulate multiple values at a time by packing several values into a single 32-bit register. This is called SIMD, single instruction but multiple data. I repeat, if we are dealing with 8 bits or 16-bit values, so our each register is having a 32-bit size, and when we are dealing with the 16-bit values, we can store two 16-bit value in a single 32-bit registers. So this can be done. In the left side we have one program. So it is here in a single register, say the register R2, Rn2. The register 2 is being renamed with count and shift right amount. So here the register 2 is going to store count value as well as shift value within a 32-bit data size. So this is SIMD, single instruction, but that is having a multiple data. Or else in the right side we can go for a multiple pixels in a single register. See that the double X is a name for the register 4, Rn4, which holds that register R4 is holding 4 pixels. This is the program for writing a pixel, storing a pixel of the image. So double X is variable name which holds 4 X pixels, X3, X2, X1 and X0, and double Y Rn5, the register 5 will hold, or the variable YY will hold 4 Y pixels. So here a pixel size is a single byte, one pixel size is single byte. For that we cannot use a whole 32-bit size of one register. Instead, a single register can be used to store 4 pixels. So this is what making the most of available registers. Whichever we have available registers, in that only we are going to utilize. Next we'll go for conditional execution. So here the ARM core has 15 conditional codes that in the previous video series we have been discussed on all these conditional codes, and most of the instructions can have these suffixes. So there are so many suffixes like EQ, NE, LS, LO, HS, GE. So many condition codes are there. 15 condition codes are there. So if condition code is specified, the instruction will be executed by inspecting the NZCV flags. So these condition codes are depending upon NZCV. If you use these condition codes in the instruction, then that instruction is going to look for these NZCV flags, and then only that instruction is going to be executed. Else that instruction, if you don't use or if you don't specify these condition codes in front of any instruction, then that instruction will be executed without any issue. If any instruction except comparison wants to update the NZCV, now any instruction wants to update NZCV flags, then it must have a suffix yes, or else the flags will not be updated. So except comparison instructions, the comparison instruction may not appended with suffix yes, but other instructions to update the flags, they should have yes suffix. So by combining the comparison instructions and conditional codes with normal instructions, we can implement a simple if statement without any need of branching to other programs. So this reduces the code size as well as a number of cycles. Say for an example, here we have taken two examples. In the if statement in C language, so it is having if I is less than 10, then C is equal to I plus 0 character, or else C is equal to I plus character A minus 10. So in the right side, if statement in assembly, the first program we can see that it is going to be implementing the first C program here. So this if I is less than 10 is going to be implemented in the assembly like CMP compare I comma hash 10, so that that I minus 10. So this CMP instruction is going to update the NZCV. Depending upon that, add LO C comma I comma hash a character 0. So if LO is lower, if I is lower than 10, then only the add instruction is going to be executed. That is I plus C is equal to I plus character 0. If I is not less than 10, then HS higher or same. HS is the condition higher or same. So if it is higher or same, then add the I plus A minus 10. Store the result into C variable. So in the if statement in C language, we will go for a second example. Here, if C is equal to character A, or C is equal to character E, or C equal to I, O and U. If C is any of one of the character A, E, I, O, U, then OL plus OL will be incremented. So this can be implemented in an assembly as in the right side TEQ C comma hash A. TEQ is one instruction for testing purpose, test equivalence, TEQ, test equivalence. So here C minus A. So here Z, the 0 flag is going to be updated if C is equal to A. If C is not equal to A, then Z is not equal to be 1. Z will be 0. Now TEQNE. So test equivalence, if it is not equal, that is if C is not equal to A, then TEQNE C comma hash character E will be tested. So if it is yes, then NE will not be executed. TEQNE will not be executed. If C is not equal to A, then TEQNE C comma hash E will be executed. Even if this is equal, next one will not be executed. If it is not equal, the next one will be executed, that is C comma I. If C is equal to I, the C comma O will not be executed, and if C is equal to I, the C comma, if C is not equal to I, C comma O will be executed. So it goes on like that, and at the end, if at all, add EQ. EQ is again Z value. If Z is equal to 1, then add instruction is going to be executed. So if Z equal to 1, that is if the result is 0, then OL is equal OL comma hash 1. So addition of OL with 1 and again loaded into OL. So like this, the conditional execution can be implemented. So this is up to these topics. We'll go for new topics in our next video lecture series. Thank you.